taking the winter fuel away, it would kill potentially 4,500 more pensioners a year. How is Labour now thinking that's an acceptable policy 7 years later? But I think they've got older and more frail. Thousands will die, and it's on their watch.
But we're hearing from the Met Office that this evening there could be going to -15, if not -20, in some parts of Scotland and Northern England.
My goodness, so everyone's got to be very careful out there because that's going to mean a lot of ice.
That's right.
Any snow around?
Yes, we've got 4 yellow weather warnings in place. They're mostly for ice, but there is some forecast for snow in Scotland.
Welcome to Unfiltered Lives, the other side, 2025. My name's Charlie, and today we are going to be talking about the winter fuel crisis and the winter fuel payment and what that's having on pensioners going into January with this amber warning alert that we have. And beside me, we have Dan. Welcome, Dan, to Unfiltered Lives.
Hi, Charlie. How are you?
I'm not too bad, brother. How are you?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to being on the programme, reacting to these videos moving forward, and just talking about our people. Simple as.
Our people, Dan. Dan's been working in the background with Unfiltered Lives on the other side, and Dan's brain is absolutely analytical in the analysis, and that's what Dan's going to start to bring now to Unfiltered Lives. Not to put too much pressure on you there, Dan.
100%. I mean, just to start out, before we crack on with the video, 41% of UK homeowners had issues last year or some sort of financial struggles with paying gas and electric. 41% out of a survey of 100,000 people. Mental. And this is what Dan is going to be bringing to Unfiltered Lives, the other side. So Dan, today we are going to be reacting to Good Morning Britain, which is a show here in the UK, and they are speaking about this lady called Elaine, who has been having problems with her pension credit because she's £2 over, Dan. She's a couple of pound over the threshold of the pension credit, which basically means that she's not getting the winter fuel allowance. And me and you are quite passionate about our people. 100%. So I'm with this winter fuel allowance, which is quite big news here in the UK. I think it was time that we reacted to this big stuff, Dan. 100%. Let's crack on with the video.
Let's crack on, brother. Let's react. Are we going to go in?
Let's go.
Let's go.
I mean, we've seen over the last few days Rachel Reeves under pressure, the economy hasn't been growing, global bond market turbulence, but the story that we're reporting today, an amber weather warning across the country. Jonathan Swain is with Elaine Yates. We're going to be talking to her later in the programme, who is keeping her temperature in her home at 13 degrees, not turning the oven on because she's so worried about paying for her heating bills, and she's lost the winter fuel allowance. And this will be a story repeated across the country. People who are just above pension credit, but still struggling with bills, and now turning down the heating.
Well, Rachel Reeves will say what's happening nationally, bond markets, cost of borrowing going up is why she had to cut the winter fuel allowance. But then Elaine is the consequence of that. Somebody sitting at home in the cold when they should be warmer, and it's not only unpleasant, it's a threat to your health.
Yeah.
That is the problem with it. And politics is all about choices, and I do think Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, made the wrong choice on the winter fuel allowance, because there are many people who lost it, 10 million people, who just have very small occupational pensions. They are just over the breadline. And if you're a pensioner, you've worked all your life, most of them, and they're paid into the system. They expected the system to come to their aid and their help when they were retired, and it's not.
I was in a hardware store the other day, and I heard someone saying we've sold out of hot water bottles.
Really?
People are buying hot water bottles, I think, because fill it up, hot water, go to bed.
Yeah, and it's cheaper than if you put the radiators on.
Can't put the heating on.
Yeah, this is also an issue in terms of admin, because Elaine Yates, who we're going to be speaking to, as Ed says, 75 years old.
I don't even know where to start there, Dan. I need to be brutally honest with you. I don't know where to start there. I can feel my anger and my passion as I'm watching this, and I'm trying to keep it down. Do you know, I think the first thing that was highlighted there is that Elaine, who's a pensioner, who's paid into the system her whole life, is sitting in a cold house where she will not put her oven on, Dan. She's sitting in a cold house and she's sitting with putting her heating on at 13 degrees and she won't put the oven on.
Ultimately, it's a place, your home should be a safe place where you can go and be warm. Ultimately. And what staggers me, in 2022, British Gas made £72 million, which is a lot of money. 2024, £750 million profit. It's gone up 10 point whatever, 100. I don't even know what percentage it is. Over 1,000%. Profits.
My brain Disney orientate with those in my numbers, because for me, like, those numbers are so extravagant that my brain does not compute. And when we are talking here, and we are literally talking about heating or eating, that's what we're basically you're talking about. And this political man broadcaster is saying that hot water bottles are sold out. Hot water bottles are sold out in the UK, so people don't have to put on their electric.
So they have to get in bed.
So that they can get in bed. Dan, you know, and I know, we have just been through a ferocious cold snap here in the UK. We're just about to go into another yellow amber warning. I'm like, you know, and I know what it's like to get into a cold bed.
100%. I mean, I'm 30, and like, I obviously feel the cold as well, so I can't imagine what it's like to live in a 13-degree house, not being able to afford to eat or heat. And once again, it's people that have worked their whole lives in this country and not able to go home and just be warm and not worried about being warm, which then affects your mental health and affects so many other things. And that's something that you shouldn't worry about being that age.
And the anger that erupts inside me, Dan, the anger that I have is that these pensioners have paid into the system their whole life. These are the pensioners who maybe went to war for us, who have been through wars in the Falkland Islands and maybe the Second World War, whether like parents from the Second World War or they were just touching that age of the Second World War and going through the Falkland Islands and all this. And they've grown up in Britain, they've paid into the system. And the likes of Elaine, who's a few quid over the threshold of the pension credits, has been denied. Been denied nothing. And if you're living in that small amount of money, where you're relying on this few £100, and then for that few £100 to be taken away, from you, if you're living in that little money anyway, it beggars belief.
And then obviously the panic's going to set in as well. The panic's for us, just going to go, what am I going to do? Just not right, is it? It's just not right. It's
not right, my brother. It's my passion's in my stomach here. I want to go up and I just want to wreck the studio right now. Should we go, man?
Let's crack on.
Let's crack on.
Because Elaine Yates, who we're going to be speaking to, as Ed says, 75 years old, has lost her winter fuel payment. Now, she applied for pension credit because she is just a couple of pounds off the threshold. She received a letter saying, yes, you can have it. She then was on the helpline and the DWP staff member said, no, you don't qualify. She's then on Good Morning Britain back in November and heard from the DWP saying, oh, actually, maybe you are eligible for pension credit. And the online calculator says yes. So that's back in November. She applied more than a month ago and hasn't heard anything since. I mean...
That is just appalling.
It's shocking.
That's
because either she's eligible, pay her the money, or she's not eligible and make it clear.
Yeah.
Which is cruel in itself because, you know...
There is a formula.
There is a strong view that it shouldn't have been taken away in the first place.
Absolutely, an overwhelming view it shouldn't have been taken away because these people are choosing between heating and eating. It's scandalous in 2025.
There's two issues around Elaine, I would say, here. One is they've got to get it right.
Yeah.
They've got to do the sums correctly. So if she's entitled to it, she gets it and she gets it paid promptly, rather than saying yes, no, and then you don't get anything. The second is it's what they call a cliff edge benefit.
Yeah.
If you go a pound over the limit, you lose it all. All your 200, all your 300 pound goes. And you only need a very small occupational pension. You can be on something like 11,500 pounds a year, 220, 230 pounds a week. I don't know the exact figures, but they're in that ballpark. And you don't get it.
No.
But what type of life can you have if you're surviving on that amount of money per week?
Andrew, the politics behind this seems so naive because the government comes in July. They very quickly sort of put their stake in the ground and say, we're taking away winter fuel allowance from millions of pensioners, some of whom will be literally just over the threshold, very, very, very low incomes. They claim, of course, the poorest pensioners are still protected, but you've only got to be just above the poorest and you still consider yourself pretty...
10 million people, it's been taken off.
10 million people. 10 million. Here, Dan, I'm going a wee bit into the politics here, because this was the first big thing that Rachel Reeves did. She put a pole in the sand and said, right, this is where I'm standing. I want to please the market. And I am not letting this £1.5 billion go out. I'm going to save this £1.5 billion. She's put a pole in the sand and says, this is where I stand. This is the big decisions that I've made. What I find extraordinary, Dan, is that, as you rightly said, this is 10 million pensioners. This isn't just men of our age. This is our pensioners. I find it extraordinary, Dan, that this is a Labour government.
Yeah.
This is a Labour government.
It's mental. Just to think, 68 million people in the UK and 10 million people have been affected. Since the energy crisis, the energy companies, since the onset energy crisis, recent one, £420 billion worth of profit in the UK alone, which is then taxed, and then 8% of that goes towards the government debt.
So what we're talking here, so that
8% of 420 million, probably talking about 38 million. 35 million. Billion, sorry.
Billion, yeah.
Billion.
Right, billion.
It's just, them numbers are just crazy. And to think one decision can affect so many people in the country that we live in, Britain.
I don't really want to go into the politics of it, Dan. I'm still really confused that a Labour government can do this to what, 60, 70 million people in the UK, 68 million. Apparently 10 million people will be affected at that.
By one decision. And
they're not just doing it, they're doing it to our pensioners. And what boggles my brain is that this is a Labour government.
This has been running the winter fuel payments, 20, 25 years?
25 years, Dan, yeah.
And for someone to just come in and just go, nope. Not even a tier system put in place to slightly decrease it. If you're slightly over, then you get slightly less. If you're slightly over by £1, 10 pence, nothing.
This is a Labour government, and I am not political at all, but I just cannot believe that this is a Labour government who have did this to pensioners in the UK. It boggles my mind. It makes me angry, if I'm honest with you. Should we go and react down again?
Let's carry on.
Poorly off. They take away this money. You hurtling towards winter, and then you get a cold snap. I mean, it was already so controversial, so cruel, and then you get a period where it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
And you have to justify taking away the money from the least well off.
And we're only in January, so that we could have another cold spell, February, March. the Chancellor was trying to appear tough. She was trying to tell the markets, I'm tough, I'll make the right, hard decisions. We do want a Chancellor to make tough decisions because the debt this country's in is unacceptably high. But this was the wrong one.
Yeah,
and when so many people have told her it's wrong, when charities have told, when Age UK say they're choosing between heating and eating, when their own backbenchers saying, for God's sake, woman, don't do it. But a brave and courageous Chancellor admits they've got it wrong and says, I've heard, I'm listening, I'm restoring it.
We disagree on most things, actually. But on this, we agree. And when she announced it in the summer, like, she had £1.5 billion going out the door, so she thought she can just stop it rather than trying to take a few % off here and there. I'll stop this £1.5 billion going out the door. But she was relying on ignorance to sell it. And the ignorance was, oh, millionaires don't need it. Well, millionaires don't need it. That's quite right.
Yeah.
But 10 million people are losing it, including people on very small occupational pensions. And that 300 quid is so important in the winter because it gives them the confidence and the ability.
£300 is important. So important to so many people. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I keep going back to Elaine, even Dan, if I'm honest. I keep going back to that lady sitting there with the cover over. I keep going back to having her house at 13 degrees and choosing between heating and eating. I keep going back to the numbers, Dan, the 10 million. The reason that Rachel Reeves says that she was taking this off is because millionaires were getting this. Well, I can absolutely guarantee and assure you, Dan, that 10 million people were not millionaires who were getting this. The vast majority of people that were getting this couldn't afford to live in the UK nowadays, especially with inflation, the cost of fuel, the cost of food.
Everything.
I mean, we already did a talk on smart meters. And Dan, how 4 million people were cut off last year, 200,000 people that were kids. So what I'm thinking, the numbers are so extraordinary that I can't get my head around it. And the numbers that you're giving me, my head just does not compute. But I think of our people. I think of the pensioners that are on the streets, the pensioners who are in their houses, in their streets, who don't have warm houses, who are sitting there freezing cold, gone into another cold snap. We've just had another cold snap. And what I'm thinking is, Dan, how many lives are we going to lose? How many lives are we going to lose this winter? That's what I'm thinking now.
It's crazy. I mean, so many factors are brought into the cost of living, as you mentioned. Homelessness is the highest been in the last 30 years, which is crazy. Statistics show that one in three people on your street would have used a food bank.
Oh.
On average, across the UK.
Yeah. One in three people on average in the UK.
Yeah. Would you, just
let that sink in. You know, that's an extraordinary number.
It's crazy, isn't it? But once again, all these numbers can get thrown about and people can talk about things and put statistics out there. But to them, that's all we are. A statistic or a number. So this channel is why we're focusing on people like Elaine. Our people.
Our people, Don. Our people. Should we go in and react 100%. To the last part, Don?
Yeah. Meaning why they've done this, and that's why it's so bad.
And Ed, we've talked about it on this programme before, because I first read about it in the Mail in 2017 when Theresa May's government considered this. Labour published research which showed if something like this was done, taking the winter fuel away, it would kill potentially 4,500 more pensioners a year. How is Labour now thinking that's an acceptable policy 7 years later? But I think they've got older and more frail. Thousands will die, and it's on their watch.
But didn't
4,500? Just think about it. As you've said so many times on previous videos, speak to your neighbours, speak to the elderly people on your street, see if they're okay. People are lonely. People are cold, and they've just had money taken off them.
Dan, I find it extraordinary because, as they were saying there, Theresa May tried this, they was talking, thinking about it in 2017, so they already knew the impact this was going to have. So Rachel Reeves already had that information, already had the information known how many folk this was going to affect. So how many pensioners this was going to affect, not young people, vibrant but young people. This is affecting our pensioners. So basically they had the information here, knowing that 4,000 people at a small guesstimate are going to die this winter. I'm going to take this away from you. This is a Labour government. This Labour government, I'm taking this away, knowing that 4,000 low estimate are going to die this winter due to me taking £300, due to people not being able to eat, not being able or not being able to heat their house because of cold and damp houses, terrible insulation because they can't do nothing. And again, Dan, we're not talking about normal people. We're talking about our pensioners. They already had the information there. And this is what nearly makes me cry. I get really, really upset about this. And right in the last words here, it says, hating or eating, people will die. And this is why we make this programme.
100%. This is why we're doing this channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on and working with you. And I'm looking forward to what we've got to come in 2025, Charlie.
Dan, thank you ever so much for agreeing to come and be part of Unfiltered Lives at the other side. It's been a pleasure having you here, mate. It really, really, really is. You're a very close friend of mine, and I can't wait till we get into this more and more and more.
100%.
And if I could just reiterate what Dan was saying there, because this programme is about prevention and and awareness. And really, if you get any vulnerable people or any neighbours, please go and check them. Please go and make sure they're okay.
Please, 100%. I completely agree with you. And thank you so much again. And remember to like and subscribe and see what's going on come for 2025. I'm excited.
Well done, brother.